Well, hello everyone. I'm Ray Sheen. Today we're going to be talking about the Black Belt, the Lean Six Sigma Black Belt, and we're going to talk about it in particular in the context of how you bring a Lean Six Sigma program into your organization. So we're going to look at 8 principles for incorporating this into your organization strategy and bringing this program on board. The questions we're going to discuss are the changes to the strategic plan and how that strategic planning process in the digital age is different from the way it used to be. The second principle would be looking at continuous improvement as a plank in your digital strategy. Our third principle will be the major elements of a Lean Six Sigma program implementation. What does it take to implement one of these? Then we'll talk about the culture change that goes along with it. It's not just enough to issue a memo and start doing some of the tools. There will be cultural implications for using Lean Six Sigma in your organization. We'll talk about the advantages that you get then once you had it implemented, once it's in place, and how that will help your business, in particular, help your business achieve some of the elements of your digital strategy. We'll look at some best practices on the implementation, things to watch out for, some of the best things to do, and some pitfalls to avoid. And then we're going to be focusing much more into the black belt at that point. What's the role of the black belt within that implementation? And finally, how do you develop your expertise and certification as a black belt? So now this is all part of a black belt's responsibility because the black belts are essentially leading the Lean Six Sigma initiative within your company. So let's take a look at the first one. And let's start by considering strategic planning in the digital age and how that's different. One of those differences is that the time horizon for strategic planning is now much shorter. Used to be that when we did strategic planning, we had 5 to 10 year plans. Now it's 1 to 3 year plans. And the reasons for that is just because everything is moving so much faster. I can remember 20 years ago when I was in an executive leadership position with a Fortune 100 company. When we were doing our strategic planning, as I said, we did an annual meeting. We would big annual offsite meeting. Everyone goes out and we sing Kumbaya a few times, whatever. But then we'd lay out the strategy, and we would update that once a year. Maybe at a 6 to 8 month point. Now you absolutely need to be updating it every 6 months. In fact, in many cases, every 3 months because things are changing that fast. One item also that's now very important in the digital age is that customer experience is very important in determining your strategy. It's less about the heft and might that the company can put together when they were an industrial company. It's now, how do I connect with my customers and stay connected with my customers? Well, a digital business strategy then has to include more than just developing new products and determining how much capacity I have. We have to be looking at how we're going to be delivering those products and those services. And in the digital world, many of the products and services are delivered online, or the product has online capabilities, so we have to be able to connect and stay connected with the product. Also, many of us are using partnerships now, partnerships in our development, partnerships in our ability to deliver products and services. And so that partnership, again, that alliance and partnership is a strategic element. Those are changing quickly. Digital companies are starting up very fast, being bought and sold, spinning off. So the landscape is just constantly changing. And that new digital startup that didn't even exist 6 months ago can be a global leader 6 months from now. And so we want to make sure we've got the right partnerships in place. Another element is that we've really moved away from a lot of the backwards looking data that was predominant with traditional strategy, and now we're moving to forward looking data. We have real-time data, real-time analytics, and so it's forward looking. All those fundamentally changing the planning process from a strategic planning process. We use our strategy in the business then to do 2 things. To drive the direction the business is going, we have to stay very flexible, but we also are going to use it to keep track of what's happening. So let's talk about what's happening here, or how we're going to be using this business strategy. As I said, it guides our business planning. The strategy determines what projects to select, which ones are going to help us to expand, to upgrade, to change our offering to our customers. Also for making sure that we're in the right markets and that we're achieving the kind of financial performance we're looking for. But we use the strategy not only to plan what we're going to do, we also use it to evaluate our execution. what's our resource allocation? Are we putting resources in the right place? Are we meeting the KPI changes, key performance indicators? Are the key performance indicators for our business changing in the right direction? Are they moving the way we want them to go? And often these also roll into personal performance goals as part of people's personal performance plan or appraisal. The strategy then becomes both a roadmap and a mirror. A roadmap of where we're going and a mirror as we look at our execution to make sure we're doing what we said we were going to do. That's another element in this digital age. Communication is so much faster that you can't get away with saying one thing and doing something else. You have to be holding yourself up to the mirror all the time to make sure you're delivering on your promises. Well, let's take a look now at the second principle. And this is the continuous improvement as a plank within your digital business strategy. Now, a digital strategy, it needs to be grounded in the real life world of the business operations. What are actually happening? Strategies can't be a pie in the sky that makes no sense for the real world. They have to be grounded in the real world. And part of that is to recognize in our ecosystem that we deal with today in the digital world is that there are two elements that are rapidly changing in an ongoing basis in the real world. One of those is customer expectations. Your customers' expectations are driven not so much by what you say, but by what their last digital experience was. If they were on their smartphone and they just had been using an app and they were able to get certain kinds of information or get a certain response, be able to do certain things with an app on their phone with another company's totally different business, totally different business industry, now they jump onto their phone to work with your company. They want that same capability. They're going to take whatever they're experiencing in other digital products and assume that those apply to yours. The second thing that is constantly changing is technology. Technology is advancing much faster now. If you take a look at the average adoption rate of new technology as compared to what it was 50 years ago as compared to today, and by adoption I'm talking about the point where you get over 50% of the nation is using a particular technology. We've accelerated by a factor of 10. We are 10 times faster on new technology being adopted. So technology is changing rapidly, expectations are changing rapidly. These changes mean that we're going to have very significant changes in our strategy on a rapid basis. That's why we also need to be able to quickly react, and that's where our continuous improvement methodology comes in. These are unpredictable changes. There's no stability in the direction these are going. So we have to provide stability in our processes and our execution that we're able to then react to these. Customers respond, as I said, to the latest new thing. Technology is constantly changing, but a good continuous improvement strategy of planning what we're going to do, doing it, checking to make sure it works, then implement it, then go on to the next one, and that continuous improvement in our performance will help us achieve whatever our strategic goals are. Which is why we want to have continuous improvement as one of the elements or one of the planks of our digital strategy. Since we are operating often in an iterative fashion, constant change means an iterative fashion. There's very few products or services that you're going to put in place and leave them sit there for 3 years before you touch them again in today's environment. You're going to be changing them every 6 months. So we need to operate quickly. In fact, one of the techniques that's often used to help with that is Agile project management. If you're not familiar with Agile project management, let me recommend the GoSkills courses on Agile that explain what it takes to be a team member, a product owner, a Scrum Master, and how Agile works. But the point about Agile is it's a way to very quickly adapt whatever your current product or process is. It's an adaptive style of project management. We also need to be regularly sensing what's happening in our market, current trends in both our market and adjacent markets that will spill over into our market quickly, using customer complaints and changing expectations. A continuous improvement methodology is going to be taking all those changes and constantly looking at what can I do to improve and modify our products and services to react to those. So that's, again, tied into why continuous improvement is part of that continuous change element in your business strategy. Another piece here associated with this is developing strong teams that are constantly reorganizing. And this means that you need strong facilitation skills within your workforce. We see that, you'll see that here on the Lean Six Sigma teams. They're teams that are often being made up uniquely for each project. So the team membership changing rapidly from team to team to team. Strong team facilitator, team building skills, absolutely essential to be able to perform well in that. And once again, GoSkills has several different courses, both of leadership and team building, to help you develop those skills if that's an area that you feel that you need some help or you need to continue to improve. So if you've got this continuous improvement, need for this continuous improvement strategy in your element in your strategy, what's the best way to achieve that? Well, our recommendation is use a Lean Six Sigma program. Let a Lean Six Sigma program be the continuous improvement, continuous change element of your business strategy. Now, how does that work? And why does it work that way? Well, let's just take a look at Lean and Six Sigma and why they are such a powerful combination for being able to address some of these issues that I've already brought up. First off, Lean and Six Sigma both start with the customer. They start at customer value. The first stage of, or at least one of the first stages in Six Sigma, is to analyze your critical to quality characteristics, your CTQs. You may have heard of that acronym. And Lean starts off by asking, what are the attributes of customer value? So both of them are grounded in the customer experience, the customer value. Then another is that both of them are focused on improvement. Lean focuses in particular on eliminating waste, being more efficient, being faster in our response. And of course, in our digital age, customers are expecting answers instantaneously. They get answers instantaneously in a lot of things, and so they want them from you also. Six Sigma focuses on eliminating variation. Variation is what costs lots of time, overhead, and money to handle all of the uniqueness. Now you may say, wait a minute, but customers also want things done their way. They want it unique. They want it to be special for them. We can build into our products and services the unique application, but we can still do that with processes that are stable processes. The variation we're talking about here is not eliminating the variation of letting each customer get it the way they want it. What we're talking about is eliminating the variation that when a customer tries to get whatever the product or service is, it works one way one day and another way another day. I don't even want to talk about my irritation with Facebook and the way the variation is constantly happening to where I never know how it's going to perform or what it's going to do. In fact, one of the reasons I've moved away from that platform. There's just too much variation in it. I need to be able to predict how something is going to perform if I'm going to have any trust or confidence in it. Now, the third thing that we want to mention that both of these do is that they rely on data. They are data-based. And of course, in the digital age, we now are overwhelmed with data. We've got all of our IoT sensors giving us data all over the place. We've got all this data that we're collecting that's sitting out there in the cloud. All this, the big data databases that's just, we don't even know what to do with all of it. Well, Lean Six Sigma can use that data. In fact, that's one of the great ways of being able to quickly improve things is you can tap into your existing databases. In the Lean side in particular, you're going to be looking at flow or process data. How is this process operating? Where does it hang up? When it breaks, where does it break? What are the places where we see it clogging up because it doesn't have the right capacity? And on the Six Sigma side, we're going to be looking at defect data. When a customer complaint is generated, when an error is created, what was happening, what was going on there, and we can trace back through our data to understand that, often using statistical analysis to help us recognize what are the characteristics that were contributing to those, what were the most significant characteristics that contributed to that defect. As we move on, I also want to talk about control. One of the nice things about Lean Six Sigma is it's not just a problem solving that says, oh, fix it, put it out there, and hope that everything is good. It actually gives you tools to help control, to actually implement and ensure that you're able to maintain that improvement that you put in place, that it doesn't revert back to the old problem way, it stays with the new way. On the lean side, we have things like Kanban and JIT around our scheduling side, TACT around the ability to design your process so that it will flow smoothly. We track things like inventory turns, and inventory and lean could be classic material through a manufacturing flow inventory, but it might also be the inventory like how many calls do we have stacked up in the call center. We can inventory anything that is moving through the process. We treat the whatever it is that's moving through the process as an inventory item for that process. So we can use that same approach in any business process. On the Six Sigma side, we're going to use statistical process control charts and control plans to make sure that the new process or the new systems we put in place are continuing to perform in the way we expect. Again, it's just making sure that we actually get sustainable improvement, not just a one-time shot that immediately evaporates again. The last piece I want to talk about is that both of these have a structured process that actually weaves very nicely together, and that's why Lean Six Sigma as a hybrid program works so well. Lean, we have the stages of value, value stream, flow, pull, and perfection. And on Six Sigma, we have the DMAIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, control. And yet they're not only very close to each other, they absolutely can weave together for one program that's addressing both of them simultaneously. So that's why I'm suggesting that you use Lean Six Sigma for your continuous improvement plank of your business strategy. It has all of these capabilities, all of these advantages that'll help you in implementing that element of strategy. Let's look a little bit closer into the lean piece. And if you become a black belt, you're expected to understand this thoroughly and be able to coach teams on this, explain this, recognize what's happening in a project or in a process that is or is not already leaned out. Well, lean looks at taking a structured process to define and improve a business process. So lean itself is a process management methodology that's focused on process improvement. What it does is it takes a look at the flow of the process and looks to eliminate the waste in the flow. There's a variety of measures that it uses. Primary measurement, though, is throughput and then value-added time and activities. I've got here just one of the typical lean diagrams that we would use, and this is just a cycle time chart. And so we see that we map out the amount of time that's being spent in each of the different areas, and we've allocated how much of that time is value-added time and how much of that is just cycle time. This identifies, obviously, that there's many ways to shorten this process without decreasing the amount of value that you're providing to the customer. Focus in on those big yellow bands of non-value added time and look to eliminate or significantly shorten those. That would be a way to shorten this cycle. My experience in lean, incidentally, is when I come in and lean out a process that had not been lean before, I can usually reduce the cycle time by 50 to 75%. More than half, we can take the cycle time out of it. I'm working with a client right now where we've looked at we've reduced the cycle time by 80% from what is the normal cycle time. A huge impact on this consumer-facing business process that they're now able to respond so much faster than anybody else in their industry, which is giving them a significant competitive advantage. Well, as we said, in Lean, we have these 5 principles or process steps that we work our way through. And you as a black belt will understand what each of these are and what are the elements within those, how to evaluate them, how to measure those, and how to use those to help improve your process. Same thing goes with Six Sigma. The elements of Six Sigma, of the Six Sigma process, as we said, is the DMAIC. Now that DMAIC, the define, is where we first understand what is the customer experiencing. We define the problem or the issue. Incidentally, Six Sigma is always focused on fixing a problem. So that if there is no problem, there's no need to do a Six Sigma process. But when there is a problem, we use Six Sigma to focus on fixing that, solving that problem. Define is where we make sure we understand that problem from the customer's perspective, not from what our internal operators might think or what one of our managers heard on the airplane one time. No, this is we go out and we understand what are the customers saying about this problem. Then we turn internally and we measure, so what is really happening? are the customers correct? What customers say they're experiencing, is that what's really happening? But let's also measure everything else in our process or our product and whatever it is that we're delivering, determine the magnitude of that problem and the magnitude of the performance of our product or process. Once we've now got that measured state, we have a baseline to compare for our improvement. We want to make sure we know what's really happening so we don't fool ourselves in thinking we've made something better when it's still just operating the exact same way it was. So we create this baseline of performance now in the measure stage. Up until this time, incidentally, we've done very little, if any, statistical stuff. So those of you who might be a little concerned about statistical work, and you've heard that Lean Six Sigma is all about stats, not yet. Define and measure, there's very little statistical. But analyze, that changes. Analyze, we are going to be analyzing the process. Now, we might analyze it using graphical tools and techniques, and a black belt needs to know what all of those are and how to use them and when to use them and which ones are of the most significant for each of your issues. By the way, if you want to know more information about those tools, we did a webinar about a month ago that was, we had tied it to the green belt because green belts are also expected to use the tools, those tools here at the analyze stage. So we tied it to green belt and we went through the different graphical and statistical tools and when to use each of those. Well, here in the analyze stage, we are using those. You, as the black belt, need to be an expert in them. You need to know when to use them, how to use them, be able to recognize when one of those tools is being used incorrectly. Either it's the wrong tool for the application, or maybe it's the right tool, but they're using it in a wrong manner, and because they're using it in the wrong manner, they'll get the wrong answer. So it really is a case of you need to be an expert in those tools to be able to apply them well. Once we've completed the analysis, we now have found the root cause or causes of the problem. Remember, this is a problem-solving methodology. So our goal is to get to the root cause of the problem. And the analyze phase gets us to the root cause. Now in the improve phase, we fix it. We've already gone through 3 phases before we start fixing the problem. But at least now we know we're fixing the right problem, and by fixing the right problem, we hopefully will only have to fix it once. Be able to fix it, put that solution in place, and know that it'll actually verify that the change has happened. We will actually test our solution and compare the results against that baseline we established back in the measure phase to make sure that we have the changed performance we're looking for. Well, once we've developed our improvement, we put it in place. It's not just enough to throw it over the wall and hope that it sticks. We actually put in place the procedures, the processes, the measurements, the management tools to maintain that new product or process performance. That's the control phase. We establish it in place. We ensure that it'll stay there and is sustainable. That's why this is a process that it can be part of your strategic plan because it is going to be constantly improving the direction you're going. It's not a throw it over the wall, hope and pray that that happens. We put it in place, we make sure it works, and we give the operators, the managers, the tools to maintain that performance as we move on to fix the next problem. Well, I mentioned that Lean Six Sigma is more than just technology and technical problem-solving tools, that there's often a culture change with it. So let's take a look at the culture change elements. It is a problem-solving technology, but in that or methodology. But in that methodology, there's 4 pillars that we rely on, and some of these might not be ways that your business normally operates. One of those is a customer focus, not an internal focus. Is our customer? Everybody says our customer is number one, but do we really focus on the customer? Do we really measure the customer? Are we really attuned to the customer? Or do all of our measurements and all of our focus just look at internal processes? And we hope that when things go outside the door, it's going to be okay. Well, Lean Six Sigma will drive you to a strong customer focus. The next one is they rely on data, not just on gut feel, not just on experts who've been around for 20 years and they've seen it and done it, That is what we relied on in the industrial age. I grew up in business in the industrial age, and that's what we relied on. But that was frankly because we had very little data, and getting data was hard. It was difficult. We had to typically go out and manually measure and record things, and that just required a lot of time and effort. So instead, we relied on gurus, on subject matter experts, the people with the experience. We'd look around for the organization for somebody with gray hair or no hair, and we'd ask them, how does this work, or what's going on here? Help us understand it. Now we can rely on data, and Lean Six Sigma does rely on data. We have a wealth of data. In fact, most organizations have too much data, but we can use that data to help us with this methodology. Doesn't mean that we don't still want subject matter experts. I'm not saying that that expertise is no longer needed. That will help us to interpret the data faster, but we can rely on data, and Lean Six Sigma does rely on that, not just on the best guess of our local expert. Third element is a structured methodology. Again, in many organizations today, the focus or the way people get things done is either nobody does anything until they're ordered to do it, or there's an atmosphere of, well, just do it. If you find it, fix it. Just do it. Just go make it happen. In Lean Six Sigma, we go through a structured process, a structured methodology. Now, that doesn't mean that that methodology has to take forever. We're not talking that it takes us 6 months to do a project. I've done a Lean Six Sigma project in 6 days, but I still go through the steps in the right sequence to make sure that I'm actually that I don't miss something, that I'm working from the right problem from the customer. I've got real data to understand what my performance is. I analyze that data to find the true root cause. I create a solution that fixes that root cause that I found, and I establish a way to control that change when it's in place so that it doesn't revert back to the old way. I go through the process of the Lean Six Sigma process to make sure that that change actually sticks, and we don't just have Lone Rangers running around doing their own thing. Which gets us to the last one. We operate often now in cross-functional teams. Most of our business processes, we now think of them in the context of a cross-functional process, especially when we're looking at addressing the customer. It cuts across multiple functions. It cuts across our organization horizontally, not vertically through our org chart. And because of that, we have to work horizontally. And so the lean processes in particular look to connect us across all those functions, and look to see that we don't get a sub-optimized performance in one area that creates massive delays and chokes the process somewhere else downstream. And so we have to look now at that cross-functional performance, not the individual isolated heroes. Well, all of those might be a significant culture change for your organization. Your organization may say, well, we operate, 2 or 3 of those are what we normally do. But do you do all 4? If you do, great. You are ready to implement Lean Six Sigma right now. If you don't do all 4, part of your Lean Six Sigma implementation is going to be the culture change to adopt these, to represent these, to embrace these pillars into your organization. The organization I was in when we first introduced Lean Six Sigma, we were very much the unstructured methodology. Just do it, get it done, and we relied on heroes and on gut feel and gut performance. So the subject matter heroes, would just do things whatever they felt was the right thing to do, and they would make it happen, and we glorified them, we promoted them, we gave them bonuses, we gave them raises, we gave them lots of accolades for doing that. Putting Lean Six Sigma in really stifled them some. They didn't want to have to follow the process, and they didn't want to have to look at data. So it was really a difficult culture change. It took about 1.5 years, 2 years until the organization really started relying on the process and data to start making the changes. Of course, the nice thing about that is we actually fixed some of the problems. I can recall one problem that I had fixed 4 times until we had brought the Lean Six Sigma in, and then we really fixed it the 5th time and it went away. But 4 times we thought we fixed it because a subject matter expert, a hero, reacted with their gut feel, and we thought we took care of something. All we were doing was just glossing over a symptom. We were making a symptom better, but we had never got down to the root cause until we used the Lean Six Sigma approach to get there. And when I look at organizations that have tried Lean and Six Sigma in the past and failed with it, and there are some, you can definitely find them, it was usually because the culture resisted it. One of these cultural elements was a problem. They never got in touch with their customers. They were so focused on internal improvement that they never improved their standing with their customers in the marketplace. They never worked with data. They ignored the data piece. They continued to just run around and do things on gut feel without actually doing the discipline of the data. Or maybe they didn't bother with the process. They'd skip over steps. They would jump to a solution. As soon as they identified the problem, they'd jump to the solution without measuring a baseline and analyzing the data. Or it was a lack of cross-functional support. And so they would fix one piece, but that just moved that, it was just like squeezing a balloon. It just moved the bubble of air to another spot in the balloon, and it just bulges out somewhere else. There was no cross-functional view of what was happening, and the organization didn't work well that way. So we want to make sure we've addressed all of those in our implementation. Let's now take us into looking at that Lean Six Sigma into the digital strategy. Well, our 4 Lean Six Sigma principles that I just talked about will create some significant benefits for your strategic implementation. One is you will now understand your processes. And with those value stream maps and a complete understanding of the issue, you'll know what's really happening. Very important in the digital age that our processes are performing well. Lean Six Sigma helps us to understand, often to map out those processes so we can manage them in a much better manner. Another is you'll be relying on data. You have lots of data in the digital age. The digital age is creating lots of data, and that data no longer just goes out and gets lost somewhere in the cloud. That data is now being used on a regular daily basis to both run our processes and improve our processes. We use lean data boxes and Six Sigma statistical analysis to help us manage and improve what's happening. Third is we have a proven problem-solving methodology. We're not trying to guess what's happening. We're not jumping from one problem to another. We've got a structured process helping us find a root cause, validating that improvement, giving us a great deal more confidence that when we tell a customer we fixed it, we know we fixed it. And they will have the confidence we fixed it because of the structured methodology we're using. And then finally, just that overall culture of customer preeminence. Remember, we start with the customer. We also essentially end with the customer because that improved performance is now impacting our customer, impacting the critical to quality characteristics that the customer cares about, impacting the customer value elements. As we have addressed those for the customer and improved their performance, that helps build confidence and trust in our customers that we are listening to them, paying attention to them, and delivering to them. And in today's digital world, the most important competitive advantage you can have is customer trust. It's more important than any of your technical performance. It's customer trust. If customers trust you, they will keep coming back again and again and again. And if customers don't trust you, they not only won't come back, they will send out all kinds of viral memes making fun of you, ridiculing you, and undercutting the performance of your organization. So let's now talk about how we actually go about implementing this Lean Six Sigma process. First off, we can implement it in any organization. While its roots were in manufacturing, it's not limited to manufacturing. I just recently finished doing a significant Lean Six Sigma implementation with a bank. Just wrapped it up earlier this month. We had brought that in and we upgraded many of their processes, improved many of those. It will work in any kind of a business. If you have a business process, you can use Lean Six Sigma. If you have a customer, you can use Lean Six Sigma. So it's not really, strictly a manufacturing program. You can use it anywhere. When you're going to be implementing it, you want to start off with directly tying your program to corporate strategy or some industry imperative. That gives it relevance, that gives it urgency, that gives it support. I was working with a company a few years ago where we were bringing in Lean Six Sigma. They are in an industry that gets measured by the J.D. Powers Association that does customer satisfaction surveys. At least here in the U.S., they do them on a regular basis. Their industry is one that, while it operates in a regional manner, and J.D. Powers looks at things in a regional manner, if you look across the entire USA, there are about 100 companies, actually a little over 100 companies in their industry. And when you looked at the scores in the J.D. Powers survey, this company had come in dead last in the country. worst in the nation. So their rallying cry, their strategic imperative was, we've got to do something about customer satisfaction. We can't survive unless we change our customers' impression of us. Everything was surrounding customer satisfaction. And that's one of the reasons actually why they even brought in the Lean Six Sigma, because when I was talking with them, I was able to promise them that if you apply this methodology well, you will be constantly doing things that directly impact your customers. You'll be fixing problems and improving processes that directly impact your customers. They adopted it, and within about 3 years, they were in the middle of the pack. I can't tell you that they're the number one on customer satisfaction, but they're no longer last. They're now up in the, like I said, the 40s and 50s, which is a significant improvement for them within just 3 years' time. You want to tie your Lean Six Sigma to whatever is a current imperative. If that imperative is product improvement, tie it to products. If that improvement is faster delivery to customers, tie it to that. Tie it to whatever is the business imperative. Second, you need to select a core team to manage your program and then train them. Again, some of these elements are things that may be countercultural. They need to understand that, embrace the culture. The tools and techniques, your core team, your black belts, need to know those thoroughly. Your green belts need to know them well enough to know how to lead a team using them. And so this requires both knowledge and often experience. So I recommend that you get that core team, get them the training they need, maybe hire somebody who already has some of the experience, and work in a small corner of your operation first to be able to get things working well. Once you've got that, now you've started with several significant projects, ones that are able to show when they actually hit, they can show major benefit around that key, critical, urgent, imperative item that we talked about in number one, that element of corporate strategy that's so important. You can directly point to the results of how you're impacting strategy in a positive way with this project. Now that you've done that, now you follow the process, you follow the tools all the way through, you'll get that performance you need, and you're ready now to broadly train the organization and to move that out throughout the entire organization. So find something that's strategic, select a core team, get them trained, pick projects that are going to be important, follow the process, and use those successes to help leverage you as you broadly disseminate it through the organization. There are some pitfalls to watch out for when implementing Lean Six Sigma. Let's briefly touch on those. One is, don't take shortcuts. Follow the process. You've heard me say that now half a dozen times, and I'm saying it yet again. Don't jump to a solution. Don't ignore collecting the data. Follow the process. Do the analysis. Make sure that you really know what the issues are when you start solving them. Now, as I said, that doesn't mean that you need to turn this into a bureaucratic process that takes months to get through. Follow through the steps. But then you can do those steps quickly. You can do each step in a day, but make sure you follow the steps to get yourself through the process. Use the correct tool or the correct analysis for the problem that you're investigating, for the situation that you have. So are you working with continuous data or discrete data? Very different analysis tools for those. When you're looking in your process and you're measuring your process, are you measuring value-added time, cycle time, applied time? Make sure you know what you're measuring. Use the correct tool and then analyze it the correct way as you're looking through your process. If you're trying to calculate your roll throughput yield, make sure you've documented your defects correctly. If you're trying to do your improvement, make sure you've got your design of experiments structured correctly so that your solution actually is an optimally performing solution. Use the correct tool, use it the correct way. The goal of the process is improvement. This is a continuous improvement methodology. It's not a perfection methodology. I have seen teams struggle sometimes where they see, okay, here's the gap. We want to close the gap. Right now, we're only 50% of the time we're successful. We want to be successful 100% of the time. So they come up with a solution that gets them successful 98% of the time, but rather than implement that, they keep looking to try to find something the 100%. Well, my recommendation is implement the 98 right now. 50 to 98 is a huge improvement. Get that in place. and then go on and work on the next biggest problem. You may circle back to this process again a year from now and take it from 98 to 99.5, and then circle back again a year later and take it from 99.5 to 99.9995. Don't try to get there first. You, quite frankly, you need to stabilize the new process before you're going to be able to make that next level of performance. So don't let perfection get in the way of a good improvement in your process. The black belts need to make sure they stay connected with their teams and not turn themselves into this mystical elite, the high priestesses and priests of Lean Six Sigma, who will sometimes deign to deal with the peasants and tell them some little nugget. That's not the way it works. Black belts, you're there with the teams. You're working with the teams. You're coaching them. You're advising them. You're helping them through some of the difficult pieces. You got to be part of what's happening and don't view yourself as being above the fray. Another is to keep your focus on the customer and not to start trying to go for internal elegance in your solutions. Again, I've seen some companies that they are looking to get that perfect elegant, this wonderful way of doing things. Now, what does the customer want? If the customer wants something that's a little bit dirty and messy, then give them the dirt and the mess. Give them what the customer wants, not what makes your process look elegant. And then finally, in the analyze phase in particular, black belts, you've got to be the screen that keeps the managers out from tampering. We've just finished in the measurement phase. We created the baseline performance. We now know how this problem is, and the managers are saying, whoa, this is a big problem. We got to do something about it. And they want to instant engineer a solution. They jump to the answer and say, oh, this is what we need to go do. But we haven't done the analysis yet. And so you'll often will find that one of your jobs is to stiff arm the managers, hold them off to give the team a chance to do the analysis to find the true root cause. Now, sometimes it'll be the root cause that the manager already saw, and that's great. That should make the manager feel good that their gut is still accurate. Many times it won't be. Or many times there will be multiple root causes, and the manager was going to only fix one but not all, and we wouldn't actually been able to significantly impact the performance. So make sure you allow the teams enough time to do their analysis. The analysis itself, incidentally, is very quick. Most of the analysis today is being done with some type of a computer software program, and it's done literally within seconds once you set it up and throw the data in. So this isn't a hard job, but make sure you don't overlook the fact that the managers are going to want to jump in there, at least some of them will want to jump in there and tamper with what the teams are doing. So I'm already starting to allude to the role of the black belt. Let's just go into that a little bit deeper. As a Lean Six Sigma black belt, you are the subject matter expert in everything Lean Six Sigma. The methodology, the tools, how it works, how everything works. You're the person, if you're going to have training, in-house training, you're the person who's probably running the training programs. You're the person that people call. If they got a problem, who do you call? You call the black belt. The Lean Six Sigma black belt coaches all levels of the organization. They're going to be coaching managers on being able to select the right projects, to create good boundaries around those projects and clear goals for those projects. Also coaching them in project reviews. Lots of different ways to run project reviews. Different organizations will do it different ways. Excuse me. You'll need to find one that's compatible with your culture. Are you a co-located organization or are you a distributed organization doing everything virtually? Project reviews will be done in different ways depending on how you operate. You'll need to coach the stakeholders in conducting those reviews so that they don't tamper with the process. They're asking the right questions at the right time. You're also coaching the Lean Six Sigma teams on how they're doing the work. In particular, you're coaching the green belts in the application. Most of the time, your project teams will be led by green belts that are focused on a particular problem in their area. Now, you may also be leading large cross-functional projects. In some cases, you will do some of that also. But most of the time, the projects are going to be led by green belts, but you're their coach, you're their mentor. When they get stuck, they're coming to you to help you with that. And that may mean that at times you jump into the project, especially when they're working with a tool that is seldom used in your business. It's a new tool. Some of the team members aren't familiar with it. And so you'll be there showing them how to use it, demonstrating how to use it so they can learn from having seen that application and have a better understanding of the appropriate use of that tool, its strengths and its limitations. You also will be the person who's taking the lessons learned from successful projects or unsuccessful projects for that matter, and helping the other project green belts and other projects use those lessons and improve the way they do their operations. So if someone has found a trick for how to get data out of your system to be able to quickly collect process data, you'll want to pass that information on to other people. If someone comes up with a great template on how to run a particular kind of analysis, and they've got it already set up and they've already got it programmed, you'll want to share that with other teams so that they can use it when they need it. You'll help those teams share those best practices. You're the glue that's connecting those best practices between the teams. And I've mentioned some of the other belts, the green belt, and I just want to go through, just so it's clear in your mind, the different roles and responsibilities associated with black belt, green belt, and yellow belt. Some organizations even have a white belt, and I'll mention that here in a moment. But the black belt is the subject matter expert, as I've already said. The black belt role in most organizations is a full-time job. Now, how many black belts you need will vary depending upon the size of your organization, but typically black belt is a full-time job in a continuous improvement or quality organization is usually where they reside. Sometimes they're in a project management office, and they're providing the leadership for all of the Lean Six Sigma teams that they have oversight for, and as I said, will many times also even be leading a large cross-functional improvement project. Green belt. These are the people, they are knowledgeable practitioners. They know how to use most of the tools. They're familiar with the process, and they typically have a full-time job in their function, in their department, in the business. But they also are going to be the person tasked with fixing the problems in the area of their business. And as such, they've been trained as a green belt, so they know how to approach problem solving, which is part of their normal job description. Fix your problems, make it work better. They're setting up the green belt projects in their department, in their function, and they're managing those. So we say that it's a part-time job, meaning that the Lean Six Sigma element is part-time because their full-time job is usually managing, supervising, or at least being involved in that department or that operation. And a piece of that role is leading Lean Six Sigma projects within that operation. There's also a belt called the yellow belt. And yellow belt is for Lean Six Sigma team members who have had some training in particular, some of the lean and the graphical tools. Typically, these folks do not have the experience with the statistical tools, but they do understand the process. They know how the process works. They know how to use the graphical tools for analysis. It's a lot of the classic very basic problem solving. So if you're taking people, quite frankly, if you want to take a lot of people in your organization through a basic problem solving course, yellow belt is the way to do that. That helps them figure out what is a problem, what is a solution, and how to deal with those. So again, we call it a part-time project member because often these are people in that department, in that function, who are on the team that's fixing that problem. They contribute their knowledge, their subject matter knowledge, not as a Lean Six Sigma subject matter knowledge, but rather their technical subject matter knowledge. They're a specialist in the process. They're a specialist with that customer segment. They're a specialist, a subject matter expert in some attribute of what we're trying to fix. Now, if you're wondering how do you develop the expertise and how do you gain that expertise to become one of those belts, well, there's a variety of techniques you can use. One is you need to get training. Of course, I would recommend the GoSkills training in Lean Six Sigma for any of those belts. Our black belt training in particular is broader than just the statistical. We include project management and leadership training because that is such a vital element of successful black belts. So that's part of the training program that we're offering. You can also go through Lean Six Sigma training in many universities. A lot of universities will have a course on that, and some of them even provide their own certification. Many companies who have established a Lean Six Sigma program will create yellow belt programs. And when I mentioned the white belt that I mentioned earlier, a white belt is typically an awareness. This is what it's all about. This is what it is. This is what we're trying to do. So when somebody comes in and says, well, you have a Lean Six Sigma solution, they know what the people are talking about. So many times that in-house training program, often run by the black belt, is training often the white and yellow belt folks in your organization. You can also join some type of a Lean Six Sigma project, becoming a team member on an active project in your organization, or if there isn't Lean Six Sigma in your organization, maybe a community group that you're with will have one, and you can be part of that. And in doing that, it gives you experience using the tools in a practical, hands-on application. So it's a great way to gain a lot of experience of in the trenches kind of experience of what does it mean to use these and work with these. Practice using both the graphical and statistical tools in any kind of problem-solving issue you're dealing with. You can use them on anything that you're trying to solve a problem. Maybe you've got a problem that you're trying to figure out, I need to find a better way to drive to work. Do the process analysis tools and figure out what's the best cycle time, where's the choke points, how do you improve your flow to work and back. Maybe you're trying to just solve a problem in something you have around your house, that's something that's broken or isn't working well, isn't working the way you wanted it to. You can apply that there. Obviously, you can apply it in any business problem, and you can apply these tools in even your own personal problems. You don't have to apply them in a team environment. Quite frankly, the team environment is to get the other subject matter experts in. If you don't need the other subject matter experts, you can do all of it yourself. Practice using the tools. Gain expertise with them. You can also participate in online forums or discussion groups that deal with these different types of tools and techniques. There's lots of them out there. Just grab one that you're comfortable with. It may be industry focused. It may be a particular specialty or discipline focused. Find one that you're comfortable in, jump in, and participate in those. Well, the last thing I want to talk about is certification. There's a lot of different ways to become certified, and we recommend using the ISAC certification, the International Association for Six Sigma Certification. One of the reasons for that is that it is one of the premier certifying bodies. It is a totally independent body. So it isn't somebody who's selling you training and, oh, by the way, if you take my training, I'll certify you. This really is an independent body of knowledge that you're tested against by an independent organization. And that, incidentally, is what we have attempted to align our GoSkills training around, is the ISAC body of knowledge. So it is an independent third-party certification body, which I happen to, like I said, I believe that's a stronger certification than some consultant coming in saying, do my course and I'll certify you. ISAC only does certification testing. They don't do any training, no consulting, no coaching. That's why they're able to stay independent. Their exams are designed to measure the body of knowledge associated with the level you're looking at, green, yellow, black, whichever level you're dealing with. You can get the body of knowledge from their website free at isaac.org. You can take their exams in an online manner at a testing center, or depending upon your organization, you may have someone who's qualified as a proctor who can do a proctored exam for you. Lots of ways to take the exams, but it's an excellent certification. It's the one that we recommend and endorse. Okay, we have about 7 or 8 minutes left. I will turn it over to you, Shannon, if there's any questions that we can answer.
Hi, Ray. Yeah, there are a few questions. First of all, thanks for all the great insights on Black Belt. Going to kick off the question period with this one right here. They say, I'm not great with math. Should I even consider trying to become a black belt?
The answer 5 years ago would have been maybe. 10 years ago would have been no. The answer today is yes. And our reason is so much of the math now has been folded into several different programs. I happen to like to use Minitab. That's one of the software applications that has all the statistical math in it and some great wizards and helps to help you with it. So the only math you need to be able to do now is add and subtract. Now you do need to be able to interpret the results, but again, the wizards will help you with that. But you no longer need to have a master's degree in math to be able to do Lean Six Sigma, which is what you almost needed back 15 years ago when I first saw it being introduced, 15, 20 years ago, that we didn't have those statistical tools easily available to us. And so we had to do a lot of the math on our own, doing it by hand. Today, use the computer. There's nothing to be gained by, yes, you can pound on your chest and say, look at what a great person I am because I can do all the math by hand. Who cares? The computer does it much faster and probably more accurately.
Cool. Okay. Next question is, as a black belt, am I expected to do all the analysis in a Lean Six Sigma project?
The answer is no, and again, in part because of what I just mentioned, we have now the tools, the computer-based tools that do a lot of the analysis, and your green belts should be able to do 95% of the analysis. Now, they may struggle with a couple of the more advanced analytical techniques like a design of experiments, and you may have to coach them through that, or at least through the first one or two of those, helping them with that one. But most of the analysis, and often, quite frankly, I only need to do a DOE when I have a very complex set of multiple underlying root causes. When I have a singular root cause to a problem, I don't need to do a DOE, and that green belt ought to be able to easily handle everything associated with that. So the analysis part that you're doing now is really coaching the green belts, helping them on some of the more advanced, really weird duck kind of things that are out there that you occasionally run into, but usually not a major element of most projects.
All right. So next question is, you talk a lot about strategy, but I thought Lean Six Sigma is a process for fixing things in our products. What does that have to do with strategy?
Well, that's a great question, and obviously, as I mentioned, it is a process for fixing things. It is a continuous improvement process. But if you think back to the some of the early slides I had on strategy, in today's world, strategy is not static. Strategy is very dynamic. It's often changing, which means that we are essentially constantly fixing our strategy. Our strategy is evolving quickly, and because of that, we need to have the tools to help us do that quick evolution. Well, Lean Six Sigma is one of those tools that helps us when the expectations of customer value change, when the critical to quality characteristics change. I can very rapidly redo all my processes. I can redo what we're executing on with that new definition, and it helps me redesign my process, redesign my product based around that new definition of quality and value that my customer has just come up with, and it's constantly changing on me. So that's where it comes in, is it comes in helping us to stay relevant with that rapidly changing customer expectation. And that's why we need a continuous improvement methodology to do just that.
Cool. Okay. Next question is, how many projects are needed to become a project manager who can lead Six Sigma projects to fully achieve their goals?
Well, when you say how many projects, that you can fully achieve the project goal on the first project if you follow the tools and techniques. As you do more projects, you'll see more things that will help you to have a better understanding and ability to better apply the various tools and techniques just because you'll have more experience with each of them. But there isn't a magic number of projects. I personally like to see a black belt have participated on at least a couple of projects in a yellow belt or green belt fashion, just so that they have actually experienced it. I'm uncomfortable with people. Now, Isaac will allow this. I personally am uncomfortable with someone getting a black belt certification who has never done so much as a single project. In fact, one of the things you'll find in our GoSkills courses is that we have actually built into a number of those exercises of case studies and examples and projects that you have to work through just so you get the experience of using those tools and techniques. We don't want you to just have some head knowledge. We want you to have the practical application also to be able to use it, even if your project doesn't require, for instance, a DOE. Our DOE course has a case study that you work through so you can use the tools and techniques to actually do the DOE work. There isn't, I wouldn't say that there's a minimum number. Now, some companies will have set a minimum number. Even some organizations who provide a certification, they may say, oh, you have to do one project with us for a green belt and two projects to get a black belt or something of that nature. I personally just want to make sure you've had some experience in the trenches before you jump to the black belt. So I guess I danced around that answer quite a bit, Shannon. I hope that's sufficient. And if it's not, whoever asked the question, please bring a follow-up question, a follow-on question, and I'll try to further amplify. What's our next one?
Cool. Thanks, Ray. So this is the final question, unless that person follows up. So I'll just ask it and then let you sign off. So the question is, do I need to get certified as a green belt first, or can I start with a black belt course and certification?
Yes, you can start at black belt. Remember what I said, I would strongly encourage you to have already been involved in several projects, but you may have been at a company where you were doing a variation of Lean Six Sigma, but you were never certified, but you were on several teams. You're now going to a new company. In fact, I've got, there's a company that I'm working with right now where we have several people who are in exactly that mode. They had been involved in doing continuous improvement projects for a number of years at another company. They're now at a new company. This company is bringing Lean Six Sigma in. We wanted to identify who would be the initial cadre of black belts. We determined that for this company we needed to have 3 black belts. One of them did have a green belt certification. The other 2 had nothing. All 3 of them are going straight to black belt. Going through the stages of yellow, green, and black can be a nice progression, and it's a great way, especially if you're working your way up in your organization, it's a great way to work your way up the management chain of the organization also. But if you're already in a position where you feel that you need to be a black belt, or you would like to have that credential so you can apply for positions, you want to get out there on Indeed.com and start posting for black belt positions, you could go straight to that. As I said, I would imagine most employers in that case, though, would also ask, so how many projects have you been involved with? You don't have to have been the leader of it, but it would be great if you can say that you've been involved in several projects where you've used some of those tools. Okay.
Cool. So no follow-up there. So just want to say thanks to everybody for participating in the chat, and thanks for all your great insights, Ray.
Thank you. Looking forward to having many of you join us in GoSkills, and I wish all of you good luck on whatever type of belt certification you seek.